Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you're gearing up for a big tech software engineering interview, you probably think you know the drill, right? Well, today, we're completely shattering that standard playbook. We're going to break down the Netflix system design interview. And let me tell you, this is a process that breaks absolutely all the rules and catches even the most seasoned engineers completely off guard. So, let's just dive right in.
Okay, let's dive into this, because our source material sets the stage perfectly with this wild comparison. It says, Google wants depth, Meta wants scale, Amazon wants leadership principles, Netflix wants production experience, honest reasoning, and the ability to make decisions without asking permission. I mean, Netflix's wish list is just wildly different from its peers. They aren't looking for someone who can cram and pass a test. They are hunting for highly autonomous, production-ready engineers who thrive without a safety net. And that fundamental difference, it dictates literally every single step of their interview gauntlet.
Which brings us to this massive gap between standard interview prep and the shocking Netflix reality. Usually, you walk in ready to define requirements, draw clean little boxes on a board, actually, scratch that, perfectly aligned little boxes, recite a memorized framework, and neatly list off some trade-offs. But the Netflix reality? It's a raw, real engineering discussion. There's no neat, structured arc. A senior engineer is going to drop you right into a problem their team is actively sweating over today, ask how you'd handle it, and then give you intense, real-time pushback. If you only know textbook system design, this format is going to punish you. It heavily rewards people who have actually built and run massive systems.
So how exactly do they test for all of this? Well, every hiring team runs a custom loop. L5 and above candidates generally face this intense 5-step gauntlet. A recruiter screen, a manager screen, a technical screen, the notorious system design rounds, and finally a skip-level interview. Let's break these down step by step. Step 1. And look, this is definitely not your typical friendly getting-to-know-you chat. It's the Culture Memo filter. We're talking an intense 30-minute recruiter screen. Now, Netflix's culture, as our source points out, is extreme. Unlimited PTO, no expense policies, top-of-market all-cash comp, and an absolute expectation of full autonomy. The recruiter's main job here, before your tech skills even matter, is to figure out if you genuinely align with this intense culture, or if you're just feeding them the lines you think they want to hear. To figure that out, the recruiter is going to put you directly in the hot seat. Imagine sitting there, and the very first thing out of their mouth is, which culture memo principles resonated with you and which gave you pause? Just think about how you'd answer that right now. You can't just flatter them. You have to show honest reasoning and prove you've critically engaged with their core philosophy. And don't even think about just dropping a corporate buzzword and moving on. If you mention something like radical candor just because it sounds impressive, you better brace yourself. They will immediately hit you with a probing follow-up, something like, give me a concrete example of a time you gave difficult feedback to a senior colleague. The source emphasizes that this filter is rigorous. They want the receipts. They need to know you actually live and breathe these extreme principles in your day-to-day work.
Okay, let's say you survive the culture filter. You're moving on to step 2, the 45 to 60-minute hiring manager screen. This is a deep dive with the actual manager you'd be reporting to. And again, no behavioral fluff here. They are directly evaluating your past technical decisions, your domain expertise, your engineering judgment, and exactly how you handle controversial decisions. Ultimately, that manager is just trying to answer one critical question in their head. Would I trust this person to own a mission-critical system on my team?
Now, what's really interesting about this next step, the technical screen, is how differently Netflix handles it. Traditional tech screens lean super heavily into abstract algorithmic puzzles, your classic LeetCode brain teasers. Netflix has completely moved away from that. They heavily favor practical engineering. During this live coding session, you are way more likely to be asked to build a rate limiter, implement a metadata cache, or design a data pipeline.
And because it's so practical, they aren't looking at your code as just some theoretical solution to a puzzle. Over those 60 minutes, your code is scrutinized exactly the way they'd evaluate a real teammate's pull request. They demand production quality. They're looking for clean naming conventions, robust error handling, edge cases, the whole shebang. They want to see what your code would actually look like sitting in their code base on day one.
Which brings us to the true core of the gauntlet, the system design rounds. 60. That is the exact number of minutes you have for each of these rounds. If you're an L4 candidate, you typically face one of these 60-minute rounds. But if you're gunning for L5, senior engineer or above, you have to survive 2 of them, sitting across from a senior or staff engineer. And guys, this is where things get truly wild.
Let this naked reality sink in for just a second. There is no whiteboard. None. Zip. Most candidates who recently survived this loop reported doing their entire system design rounds without any shared diagramming tool whatsoever. No drawing boxes, no visual crutches, no perfectly structured diagramming arc.
And this brilliantly illustrates why you have to completely overhaul your prep strategy for Netflix. To survive this round, you absolutely must emphasize verbal explanation over visual presentation. You have to be able to describe a complex system architecture clearly, using nothing but your words. Imagine trying to walk an interviewer through an intricate data flow without being able to just point at an arrow on a screen. Now, some candidates do scribble on paper privately just to keep their own thoughts straight, but the actual communication, it's entirely conversational.
And what exactly are you talking about for those 60 minutes? Domain-specific problems. See, because Netflix doesn't do a generic company-wide loop, those senior engineers are going to drop you right into the deep end of their specific domain. Whether that's streaming, recommendations, the CDN, system resilience, or observability, they're going to lay out a real, painful problem they are facing right now and simply ask, so how would you handle this? They want to see if they'd actually want you in the room when making a tough technical call.
So, you made it through system design. Great! Next up is Step 5, the skip level interview. This is a 30-minute conversation with the senior director or exec, and it focuses entirely on one specific thing that we're calling the dissent test. Netflix places a massive premium on engineers who have exceptionally strong opinions, but who can ultimately commit to a direction even if they completely disagreed with it. They test this directly. They're going to ask things like, tell me about a time you disagreed with a decision and could not convince others to change it. And here is the real kicker from our source material. You will be asked for multiple examples. By the time they ask for your third example, you might be digging pretty deep. They'll even tell you, hey, even a disagreement on a pull request counts. They want to see the actual mechanics of how you disagree, and more importantly, how you handle losing an argument.
Let's move to our final point and see how this all builds into the ultimate pressure cooker. The Netflix hiring structure has one final, brutal reality: the no down-level policy. And this makes the stakes incredibly high.
So the crucial point is this. Let's say you're at Google or Amazon, interviewing for a senior L5 position. If you slightly miss the L5 bar during your loop, they might still catch you with a safety net, right? They might say, hey, we'll offer you an L4 spot instead. But at Netflix, if you miss that L5 bar, it is a complete rejection. Zero down-leveling, no fallback offer. It is entirely all or nothing, which proves exactly why specialized, targeted prep for their conversational no whiteboard format is absolutely non-negotiable.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question you really have to ask yourself after taking all this in. Could you actually design a highly scalable system using nothing but your words? Think about it. If a senior engineer pushed back hard on your architecture right now and you didn't have a whiteboard to hide behind, how would you fare? It's a fascinating, intense approach to hiring that strips away all the fluff and gets straight to the core of what you can actually do. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep that question in mind as you prep for your next big challenge.